All right, welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be taking a look at a Beastmaster sequence for Gnome Sequencer and how to set it up and use it, how to set up your character in order to get some really solid performance in keys. Here we did a Stone Vault 7. You can see I averaged 1.5 million DPS there. And this is in 11.0.5, so right after the Beastmastery rework that they did there. All right, now in terms of setting up your character, item level is going to be the most important thing, but as far as statting goes, you want to use crit, haste, and mastery and more or less even statting. I like running extra haste. I think it makes things work better and gives higher uptime on our important buffs. So I run a little bit higher haste, but I believe the ideal statting is sim to be around equal stats on all of these. So haste, mastery, and haste, mastery, and critical strike evenly with as little versatility as possible. And I do adhere to the as little verse as possible. I generally run a little bit more haste than others might, though. Now, as far as trinkets go, I'm just using a couple of trinkets that I've come up with. I think they're both, middling trinkets, 7th and 8th best trinkets for our spec. I think Sack Brood is on top by a fair margin, so pretty standard there. So just get the best trinkets you can. Again, avoid versatility and look for haste or crit or just big stat sticks. All right, now as far as the sequence goes, there are two sequences that you'll use. There's the DEC BM and DEC BM single target. The single target is for use in single target. I also use it if there's 2 targets available and Aspect of the Wild is up, or Call of the Wild is up, because that activates Beast Cleave. But otherwise, if either Call of the Wild is on cooldown or there's more than 2 targets, then you use just DEC BM. I'm working on the 1.1. That's not an active sequence right now. And how they work is they basically go through your abilities and just use, I layer them in a little bit in order to increase priority on some abilities compared to others. But overall, things seem to work pretty well. And it's a gnome sequencer sequence. How it works is that when you bind it to a key, and whenever you hit that key, it fires off the first block, then it fires off the second block the next time you hit it, then it fires off the third block the next time you hit it, and so on. And so if you tap this key quickly enough, then you can take advantage of that. Now, how I do this myself is that I bind this. I have a mouse with programmable keys, and I bind my mouse scroll wheel to one of these keys. I actually use the square brackets for setting them up, so they're bound to the square brackets if I need to hit them on my keyboard. But then I rebind my scroll wheel to these keys, or to the square bracket keys, the scroll up and scroll down separately. And then I also have them bound on thumb keys that I can tap whenever I want. So it's a 12-button MMO mouse, and I replace 2 of the 12 keys with those as well. And so in order to use the sequence and do your core rotation, you simply target an enemy, throw a Hunter's Mark if you can, if you're running up to a boss, and then fire. I usually, on a multi-target situation, open with a multi-shot and then go into the sequence, but the sequence will fire off a multi-shot fairly quickly. That just ensures that your first few shots fire off with the Beast Cleave active. You can see I run a couple of weak auras to track my Frenzy as well as my Beast Cleave. That's not necessary. That's just for my own personal information and to help make sure that those don't drop off. But that is more or less the entire thing. There's not a lot of babysitting on this sequence. As long as you are running the sequence correctly, then it should do just about everything you need. Now, as a hunter, this frees you up to focus on the other utility in your classes. So the other abilities that I bind and keep easy access to are my Fortitude of the Bear. This comes from Tenacity Pets, and it's a great healing and defensive cooldown. I also have Exhilaration and Survival of the Fittest, which are also defensive or healing cooldowns, and then Aspect of the Turtle, of course. And right now, hunters can clear poison and disease by feigning death, so that's important. We can use a disengage to snare clear, so I keep all of those abilities on my toolbars as well. Hunter's Mark is our big group DPS buff. It increases damage done to targets above 80% health, so if you can throw that off on the priority enemy in a pack or a boss before you run in, then that's going to increase damage by an equivalent amount to something like Mark of the Wild. And so that is very helpful. And then as far as consumables go, I use rib stickers because I like getting a little bit of extra stamina, as well as the Flask of Tempered Swiftness for some extra haste, and the Algari Mana Oil, and then the Tempered Potion for my Battle Potion. So I keep all of those abilities on my keys, and run them. So let's go ahead and jump into a key and take a look at this macro and play. All right, so this is a Stone Vault +7, and we'll fast forward through parts of it. We did end up timing this, even though we had a little bit of a rough first pull there. And at 7, you have the extra penalty for death, so that was tricky. But you can see the sequence is working well there, and I'm mostly just spamming that sequence, running that mouse wheel over and over again, and watching my feet, or trying to. Things get hectic here. I do lose track of my target. I was intending to be watching a Void Soul, and a fear gets off there, but we managed to work through the remains and suffer 8 deaths, which is a hit to our timer, but get the pack down and the group stays together. I know in a lot of pugs that would fail, but we cleared it out. Unfortunately, we have a bear tank, which is, I think, the best for handling the current affix, which is where the orbs come down and need to be interrupted or CC'd. And from that point, the dungeon goes pretty smoothly. Let's fast forward a little bit. And so again, I focus, if there's a target in the group that I know I'm going to need to hit, I target that. So I'm right now with these groups, it's the Void Souls. They do a fear that's pretty nasty. So we want to avoid that. And then with these 2 Earth-infused Golems, they have big AoEs, so I'm watching for defensive cooldowns. I did get hit by a stun there. And then mostly it's just using my defensives to stay alive, help out my healer wherever I can, and do as much damage as I can. Right now Edna comes in, and I start spamming my my Hunter's Mark right as the fight begins. And then from that point on, it's mostly just sitting in the back and making sure I don't overlap with any of my friends and their reflective beams. And I'm also not standing in any volcanic spikes. And then when the boss does his AoEs, if I have a cooldown available, I use it as well. Unfortunately, this boss falls without issue. Now, once again, one of the big advantages of using a sequence like this is that it allows you to focus on what's going on in the fight. So you can see here the Void Despoilers do a large amount of damage. I was able to hit my Survival Instincts there to reduce that damage and stay alive even when other members of the group were falling. And we managed to clear that up. Move ahead. And the same deal, just watching for interrupts. You know, target someone who is going to do a cast that needs to be interrupted or that you're going to need to CC. The tuned speakers here do censoring gear, which is a silence. You don't want to let that get off, because if it hits your healer at a bad time, you're having a bad day. Here the Void Despoilers up, so once again I hit my Survival Instincts for his AoE. And we're just working through the packs. Pull another Void Despoiler here. We lose our tank, but manage to finish off the group anyways. Get the tank stood back up, and then set up for the boss. Now this boss is a pretty straightforward one. We need to switch to targets, so I make sure to switch to those, focus them down, keeping an eye on the other targets in the room to make sure we're not popping them too quickly. And then the boss also sends out orbs that we need to pick up. So I make sure to grab one from each phase, and that's the best way to do that mechanic is one person. Each person should grab, there's 2 sets of 5 orbs. Each person grabs 1 orb in each wave. And that increases your damage against Skarmorak's shield, which makes it significantly less dangerous because it doesn't last as long. Same thing, the crystalline shards come out, start clearing them down. I noticed we'd gotten to 2 stacks after the first 2 adds, so I waited till that fell off to kill the 3rd add. And burn this one down, same deal there. Wait for the stacks to fall off and then kill the 3rd add. Then grab orbs and kill the boss. And I think the rest of the boss goes without issue. One of the best things about about playing a Beastmaster Hunter in particular, especially one where you can sort of put your rotation into a sequence like this, is that it gives you the ability to move around quickly and easily, so you can really focus on doing mechanics, on using your defensives and self-heals at the right times, making sure you're hitting the necessary interrupts and things like that. Now in this room, off to the back right there, there is an anvil with an ingot on it that gives you 10% versatility to your entire group if you have a dwarf, a warrior, or a blacksmith in the group. I am a dwarf, so we take this path so I can click that ingot and give us that 10% versatility buff. The tank was not familiar with the ingot there, so I explained it to him. That's what the little hiccup there was. And then we proceed as planned. Go ahead and get into the boss. The rest of these trash packs are about the same. And with this boss, as a ranged player, you want to make sure that you are keeping an eye out for the ranged interrupt after Speaker Brock throws his item there. So you can see, let's rewind that just a little bit right there. So Speaker Brock jumps to the back and starts this molten metal cast up there in the top corner. As a ranged player, we want to be the one to hit that. You can see I popped that interrupt there, and that gets him to run back into the group where the tank can pick him up, and you can proceed to cleave down the 2 adds again. But that's something that a ranged player needs to do. As a Beastmaster Hunter, you're a perfect candidate for that. Your interrupt will be up for it every time. And other than that molten metal, your interrupt isn't needed in this fight. So if you hit the ranged ones and leave it to your tank or other melee to handle the melee ones. Make sure we're dodging orbs, watching our feet, and finding the safe vent to stand on at every turn, hitting that ranged interrupt again, and the fight is over. Now, since we didn't clear the right-hand side of the room, we take the long way home, but that's okay. On these guys, you want to bait the charge into the wall, but not stand in front of it, because it will kill you. And so again, we use our superior movement abilities as a Beastmaster Hunter. Our entire rotation allows for infinite movement and range, which is not infinite range, but long range, which makes it nice and easy. And we work through the rest of the trash without issue. Making sure to focus the totems in these groups, because if they do get their casts off, that would wipe the group. And then the final boss is here, and this one goes pretty well. As a Beastmaster Hunter, I always stand right next to the portals, just out of range of their suck, so that they aren't drawing me in, but I have easy access when the Void Corruption comes out to drop my stuff. So I'm sort of pre-positioned to drop it, and as soon as it comes out, I clear, and that way I'm not a burden on the group. Sitting that far out, you do have to watch for the boss's frontal, so make sure you know where your aspect of the cheetah is, or aspect of the turtle, in case you need that one. And you can see that I almost got clipped, but managed it. We downed the boss and managed to +1 it, despite a really rough start. And in high keys, that's an important thing. All right, and that's going to do it for today. I hope you guys have found this video for the Gnome Sequencer sequence helpful. Leave a like if you have, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. My name is Dakoba, and I hope you have an epic day.